Om Shanti. Today's chapter is Withdrawal from Business. Everything was now changed for Dada. He could no longer apply his mind to the diamond business. It simply held no interest. He decided to wind up his affairs, and so he traveled to Calcutta. He had owned his shop there for so many years, and yet now it all looked so strange to him, so pointless. He walked down the aisles of his jewelry warehouse, looking at the trays filled with glittering diamonds, millions of dollars worth of gems, gleaming symbols of wealth, and he felt that they were simply stones, worthless chunks of mineral. He shook his head. This is a meaningless business. Dada, approaching his partner, spoke quietly. Please release me from this business. The partner's jaw dropped. He was somewhat shaken, for he was well aware that it was Dada who was the moving force behind the firm's success. If Dada were to leave, the partner thought there would be many difficulties. He asked what reasons lay behind Dada's decision and how much of a share he would ask for to be bought out. Dada gently consoled the man. I am leaving because I need to be free. I feel that this business is a lie, and so I am going. I have received a message from God that this Kali Yuga world will be destroyed. So I want to use this money in godly service. I will not ask to go through all the accounts. Just make the settlement as you think fair. Dada wanted to get back to his meditations as soon as possible, but the partner wanted to go through the books together with him. So Dada agreed to stay. However, their accounting was soon interrupted by a knock at the door. We mentioned before that Dada had an uncle, Mulchand Arala, known to everyone as Kaka Mulchand, a great philanthropist. Together with Together he and Dada used to dispense the donations. Just as Dada was beginning to clear the accounts with his business partner in Calcutta, a messenger came into the office with a wire from Sindh that Kaka Mulchand was ill. Dada left immediately without checking the accounts. Whatever letters and figures the partner's lawyers gave him, he accepted as true. Dada sent a wire home that basically said, Dada received God realization and the partner received temporary royalty of worldly wealth. Then he boarded the train to visit his sick uncle. Dada's family were thoroughly confused. They couldn't believe he had sold the business just like that. What had happened? When he disembarked in Sindh, Dada Likraj was a completely changed man. Next chapter is process of the realization of the process of death. Kaka Mulchand died before Dada was able to reach him. Some days later, though, Dada had a vision. While sitting alone in his office, Dada saw the moment of Kaka's death. He saw the soul take its leave of the body, exit through the forehead. He saw this life energy rise like mercury in a thermometer, moving up from the toes and finally concentrating in the head. Then in an instant, the soul departed. Dada now understood the process of death. Only the body died. He saw clearly, not the soul. Within a week of the vision of Kaka Mulchand's death, Dada received yet another revelation. This time, he saw the deity Vishnu once again. He spoke these words. Who spoke these words? I am the four-armed one. You are that. Afterwards, other visionary figures appeared. Sri Krishna Jagannath, Badrinath ji, and Kedarnath ji, one after another, each saying the same thing. You are that. Dada reached a state of great happiness because of these revelations. But how were they to be understood? He began thinking deeply about them. During this period, Dada's guru showed up. Since Dada was still not quite sure what role the guru played in all these extraordinary experiences, and since the guru seemed the best human teacher he could rely on in such matters, he continued to treat him with the same respect as before. Dada arranged a large reception for him. Many people were sitting there, but the way Dada sat in their midst, the way he got up, in fact, everything he did was now completely different. Dada's body had now changed. Dada's body had not changed, but it was clear that his mind had become detached. The soul of Dada was receiving power from some unworldly source. B.K. Dadi Brijendraji, who had the good fortune to be there, writes about what happened on the night of this gathering. The Guru was lecturing, and Dada got up to leave. Never before had he done such a thing, for it was a sign of disrespect. My attention was drawn to Dada. I knew that something very powerful must have taken hold of him to make him act this way. I sent Jashodaji, his wife, to speak to him. Then I had the idea to go after him also. I went to Dada's room and sat down near him. Jashoda returned to hear the Guru's lecture. I will never forget what happened next. I saw that the eyes of Dada had become completely red, as if a red light was glowing inside him. His whole face had become red, and even the room was illuminated with a reddish, otherworldly glow. And then something began to happen inside me too. I felt bodiless. How can I describe it? I was there, and yet I wasn't. I was simply light. My mind felt clearer than it had ever had been. I heard a sound from above. It was as if through the mouth of Dada someone else was speaking. That voice was so very quiet at first, then it grew louder and louder. It was stunning, not frightening, but simply awe-inspiring. The voice spoke, Nijanandharupam Shivoham Shivoham Jnanaswarupam Shivoham Shivoham Prakash Swarupam Shivoham Shivoham Nijanand Swarup Gyan Swarup Prakash Swarup. Translation: I am the blissful self. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. I am the knowledgeful self. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. I am the luminous self. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. I am the form of self, the form of knowledge, the form of light. To this day, I cannot forget that voice, nor that scene. The atmosphere was electric, more than real, and my experience of feeling as if I was without a body is still alive in my memory. As soon as Dada opened his eyes, he started looking around with great wonder. Whatever he had seen had jolted him to the core of his being. I asked him, Baba, what are you seeing? He said, do you know what that was? It was light, it was power, and there was an altogether new world. There was someone far away. There were many. They looked like stars. And when the stars came down, they became princes and princesses. The light and power said to me, you have to make such a world. But it did not show how that world was to be made. How shall I be able to make such a world? Who was speaking? Who was that speaking to Dada? It was the highest on high. I had witnessed the arrival of the Supreme Father, Supreme Soul, Shiva, in the body of Dada. Dada fell into deep, deep thought. He immersed himself in the work of solving the mystery of this unparalleled event. Who was that? What kind of power could give me such visions, such knowledge, such self realization? Gradually, he unraveled the logic and the implications of it all. The secret was unveiled to his astounded intellect. Yes, it was really so. God, the Supreme Soul Shiva, himself had entered his body. It was God who had revealed the truth about the coming destruction and of the establishment of the heavenly world that would then follow. And it was God himself who had given the sign that he, Dada, was to be his medium and the engine for creating such a divine world. The true Gita is recreated. Dada was now having the experience that God was singing him his Gita, song of knowledge, inside him in a secret and indiscernible way. The inspiration of God's knowledge was increasing within him constantly, and at the same time, Dada was becoming stabilized in his new consciousness, experiencing ever more deeply the wonderful taste of self realization. His intellect was moving faster now, too. He began to churn over the ideas over what the Mahavakyas, real great sayings in the Gita of Bhagavan, and their deep meaning were. He received divine wisdom in response to all his questions, and he understood firmly that the Gita was the only scripture in which God himself speaks his great versions. But now Dada realized that the Bhagavad Gita, as it is presently read, is in a distorted and much diluted form due to errors and additions which had crept in since it was first delivered orally by God 5,000 years ago. The Gita scripture was not written down until 2,500 years later, after the fall of the deities who were created by hearing it in the first place. But now Shiva was giving him, but now Shiva was giving his knowledge again and making Dada realize its implications in practical form. The written Gita, which Dada was reading every day, became less and less relevant to such an extent that very soon he detached from it entirely. Of what use was that old scripture now that the real Gita was being sung to him by God himself? Dada had the experience that he was urged that God had entered the chariot of his body to give him the knowledge. God himself, in order to keep his promise, had come again in secret to fulfill the desires of his devotees. Dada felt that now, at last, he had the accurate knowledge of the self, of nature, and of God. He knew that his perishable physical body was simply one of many and was the last of a series which began 5,000 years ago as Krishna. And soon this world of sorrow would be replaced with a world of happiness once more, and he would be reborn as baby Krishna, destined to rule in paradise. He was the first man, Adidev, who was being recreated in God's image. When the job was complete, he would be set down in the Garden of Eden. He, Dada, was the original Adam. Once he had heard the secret voice of God, Dada began giving the knowledge to all his friends and relatives. When he revealed to them that they were souls, they were overjoyed, experiencing God's love as it poured directly from Dada's eyes. It was an experience so powerful that they were mesmerized. And Dada himself was utterly intoxicated. He used to say to people simply, "You are a soul." That was enough. He wrote it also, so it would not be forgotten. I am a soul. Jashoda is a soul. Radhika is a soul. He wrote it over and over until it became firmly fixed in their minds. As others came in contact with him, they too became transfixed. Men and women, rich and poor, all felt the experience. It was as if their lives were reawakened. They became self realized. They experienced themselves as light. Along with this came peace of mind. Their worldly desires slipped away. They began to lead pure lives, pure in eating, drinking, speaking, behaving, and thinking. In a remarkably short time after entering Dada's body, which God continued to borrow at regular intervals in order to teach, God had utterly transformed the lives of all who came close. He educated these souls untiringly, and even as their numbers grew, he gave love like a father, a completely selfless parent with equal love for all, patient, merciful, and just. He also showed them rules and methods for making their lives as elevated and as valuable as they possibly could be. Shiv Baba was creating living diamonds. Om Shanti. Tomorrow we'll go to part 2, the personality of the Supreme. Thank you, Baba.